Good evening, good evening, good evening. How unusual for me to not see my smiling face smiling back at me in the middle of the screen this evening. You are live on StreamYard. We are pretty much wherever we've put ourselves, and we're not alone tonight. You might be alone, but you're not alone because we're with you. And we're not alone because we're together. And you know why? Because we are better together. Tonight, it is our second webinar. I'm going to regret labeling the numbers on these webinars, aren't I? Because one day they'll be in a series. Number 28 million will be number one, and I'll be wishing I never gave them a number. So this is number 2. However, if you want to edit that later on, Mr. Whoever's doing the editing, this is the personal independence payment webinar. So we are in inclusion, and we're also on StreamYard, but you are with the inclusion clan, and we are definitely all here tonight. I've got people on StreamYard with me. We can have up to 10 on stage. So I just thought I'd get dead excited and have loads of us. I can't even remember how many there are. I think there might be 8 of us. So we are nearly at maximum amount of people in StreamYard. I feel like some sort of StreamYard freak, just loading the stage with people. No reason other than I can, right? I can remember it. I was just looking back tonight and saying, do you remember when I couldn't even share my screen? People were like, yeah, it was last week. It wasn't really, honestly. It wasn't last week. It was last year. Not so long ago. So we are still live. We're going to be a while tonight because I've got a very important thing to talk about, and I believe, and I'm not speaking out of turn here, but I believe everybody that's here tonight has a version of this money. Yep, we are all financially better off because of this UK government. But why are we better off? And why are we grateful to the UK, the UK government? Well, the answer is we're not. No, I'm joking. We are. What is personal independence payment is the question of the night. What is it? Who gets it? What do I need to know about it? How do I apply for it if I'm going to get it in the first place? And who's it for? Like, can I have it? Is it my brother's? Who's having it? And how long does it take, even if I do ask for it? If I can have some money, how long does it take to get it? Where's it from? And then what do I need to do or be to get this money? I mean, free money. There's not very often that people offer you free money. So this is the question that we're asking. What is personal independence payment? I think the government asks that question sometimes as well. I'm going to stop having a go at the UK government because I know that they're very important. In fact, I might actually work with them now. So I'm going to stop it. There's no need. It's a bit like being married, isn't it? And having a go at your husband or your wife. Oh, they're indoors. Or it's not big and it's not clever. There's no need for me to have a go. They do a very hard job with very difficult circumstances. And I'll not laugh the next time I say that. So let's get on to the real deal here and not talk about these UK goings on, because the government will always be the government, won't it? However, we will always be disabled. Well, perhaps I am. I will be. And that's the answer. What do we need to know about PIP? Well, the thing we need to know is you need to be disabled. Now, there's a change. There's a change, isn't there? There's something you need to be disabled for. If you're not disabled, go home. I'm joking. If you're not disabled, you can't have PIP. But if you are watching this and you're not disabled, keep watching, because let's remember that disability knows no discriminatory grounds. No, it won't discriminate against you. One day you might need PIP. So if you don't need it now and you don't know somebody that needs it, you never do know. So keep an eye on this, because it's a non-means tested benefit. So it means that even if you're a bazillionaire, that's not a real thing. You can't be a bazillionaire. It's not a real thing. You can, however, be a quadrillionaire. And me and Jew, who's here tonight, I think, no, he isn't. Oh, I don't know where our Jew is. But anyway, our missing Jew. We had a joke about that earlier. I can't remember it now. But somebody else will share with me in a bit. Jew is a friend of ours. He's not just a friend. He's not. He's a director of inclusion. So Jew, one of the directors of inclusion, was having a conversation with me about PIP earlier. And I was saying to him, it's a non-means tested benefit, which means that you can be a bazillionaire. We weren't talking about that. We were talking about quadrillionaires. and decide we want to be that too. So even if you're a quadrillionaire or a bazillionaire or just got a lot of money in the bank, I don't think any of us are heirs yet, are we? Heirs to the throne even. We're not, but we might have some money. So it doesn't matter if you've got money in the bank. Doesn't matter if you've got a full-time job. Doesn't matter if you just married the King of England. Although I think maybe his wife might be the Queen might be a bit fed up. It's still a non means tested benefit. It means you can apply for it and you can have the money if you're entitled to it. It's not to do with how much money you've got. So just remember that. Don't be coming to me and saying, can't have PIP, got £8 million in the bank. Doesn't matter. Don't care whether you've got a pound or £8 million. It's not means tested. Now I'm told that sometimes I go through things a bit quick, so people don't quite catch the breath. But if you haven't got that one yet, you really ought to go home. It's not means tested. You don't have to worry about how much money you've got. PIP, that's not DSA, not Disabled Students Allowance. We're going to be talking about that one week. It's not access to work. That's access to work. It's not that. It's not that. It's not employment and support allowance. No, that's different. It's not universal credit. Definitely not. It's none of those. It is PIP. Now, the older person's version of PIP, that's people over the age of 65. Yeah. The third age. That's attendance allowance. That's not means tested either. You can be rich and have attendance allowance. Same thing, just for people over 65. Now, the baby version of DLA, I've done it, of PIP, I already told you the answer. It's like one of those jokes, isn't it? How many people did it take to change a light bulb? Yeah, that one. Yeah, the baby version that somebody here is still on because he's just a baby is our Chris. Yeah, so we'll be talking to him in a little while. And he's in receipt of DLA, Disabled Living Allowance. That's for children. Now, if you look at Chris later, you'll find he's not a child. But sometimes they leave people who are just born disabled and they're like, well, nothing's going to change. Just leave him on that. So he's been on that since he was a child. And when you meet him, you'll see how long ago that was. So Chris is not a child anymore. I'm being flippant. He's not a child anymore. But some people are left on DLA. That's Disabled Living Allowance. And again, have a wild stab in the dark when I tell you. What is it? Can you remember? It's non-means tested. And if you don't know where that is, it says it just at the top of that screen there. PIP is a non-means tested benefit. I think you might have got that already. Here we are at 8:05 and I've taught you something. You've learnt something new. You've learnt that disabled living allowance is for kids, unless you're called Chris, and then you can be well old and still have it. Attendance allowance is for really old people, unless you're called Alexia. Then you get it when you just eat spring chicken. And PIP is for me. I mean, it's for everybody. It's not just for me. I mean, believe me, I want all of my PIP. I need it. If I don't have it, well, the thing is, I've got a van out there. I can't get anywhere without PIP. I'll explain this in a minute. It's all to do with my van. If you're confused now, you won't be at the end of this, I promise you. Now, it's money. As we know. How do we know it's money? I'll tell you how we know. There. Can you see? There was a picture of it. I had a picture of some money. It was in somebody's hand. Not rocket science, is it tonight? Not rocket science. And we know that that money is non-means tested. It means you can be a bazillionaire. It's intended. What's it for? What is this money for? Why is the government giving us money? Let's be honest, the government generally take it off you, don't they? They want to turn us into taxpayers and grab it all in. So why would they hand any out? Well, I'll tell you. It's because being disabled costs money. It costs a fortune to be disabled. I won't go into it now, but I can tell you now, it costs hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of pounds a month more to be disabled. And it depends on how disabled and in what way you're disabled as to what it costs. For example, I use loads more water than anybody else. My washing machine is on twice a day. My bedding gets changed regularly, so regularly that I have my water rates capped. There's another trick. There's a free one in a PIP seminar. You just got a freebie there. It's like a golden Oh, it's an Easter egg. There we are. It's an Easter egg, like an Easter egg in Walt Disney. I've just dropped an Easter egg right in the middle of PIP. I've just dropped you a water rates Easter egg. If you have a condition that means you use more water than your ordinary household, ask the water board, not called the water board anymore, but the water company, to cap your water rates. Even if you do extra washing, even if you think that you have to clean more because of an autoimmune condition, if you think you have to wash more bedding, if you think you have to wash your clothes more frequently, if you can show that your water usage is bigger than other people's, you just have to apply for it. And actually, you haven't got to prove the amount of water. You've just got to prove the condition. So send off your PIP award or your DLA or your attendance allowance award and share it with them. And they'll see that you have issues that cost more. And that's what PIP is for, DLA and attendance allowance. That money is intended to cover the additional living costs that are due to your long-term illness or disability. Now, that probably also includes my hand cycle, for example. Now, I realise that my PIP couldn't have afforded that hand cycle. It would have taken many, many months, and the fact that I wouldn't be able to do anything else except that. But that's the sort of example. Or incontinence pads, if you haven't got the incontinence service, or taxis to go places because you haven't got a vehicle, or you need to go to the hospital, or I mean, there's a myriad of things. I have to buy bottled water because I can't actually tolerate the tap water with fluoride in it. Makes me very poorly. Actually makes me very unhappy to drink tap water, and that makes me sound arrogant. It isn't. It's the effect of the additional things in the water. So all of those are additional costs that are due to our illnesses, and that's what PIP is for. So it's not means tested. You're either going to get PIP or DLA or attendance allowance, depending on what age group you're in, or you may have one and stay on it into the next age range, but it doesn't change. It's still not means tested. It's still to pay for those additional costs, and it consists of two parts. It's a game of two halves. No, it's got two parts, and you may or may not be entitled to one or the other or both. And I'm entitled to both at the enhanced rate, and we will move on to that. And importantly, and this is one that I've had for the last 30 years, bores me to death, it's not whether you work or not. Please don't ring me up or write to me or email me and say, but I've got a job. What if I get a job? What if? Now, that is a question to come on to later when we do have a conversation, but PIP is not removed or prevented by work. You can receive PIP whether or not you are in work. PIP, DLA, and attendance allowance is not paid due to whether you work or not. It's not paid due to whether you're a bazillion or a gazillion or a quadrillionaire or not. It's not paid because the government love you. It's not. It's paid because of your disability, the effect of your disability. It's to cover the additional costs of your disability. It's in two parts about how you live and how you move, daily living and mobility. And you can receive it whether you're in work or not. And if you are working full time and you have a disability and you don't receive PIP or DLA or attendance allowance and you haven't applied and you're worried about it, honestly, you are entitled to apply. Doesn't mean you're going to get it. Just means it doesn't matter that you're at work. So I think we've covered those very important points. So what do we do? How do we apply? Well, I mean, the first thing is that if I was you, I wouldn't do it alone. If you want to apply and you need to apply by voice and you can't type right, don't feel that you can receive such an enormous form, and it is, I assure you, it's a big form. Then after you call the claim line, which the number is findable, the personal independence payment claim line is findable online, and I won't be giving it to people because it changes, and therefore I suggest you go find it, because if I put it on this webinar, It's going to change, just like the number of the webinar, and then it will be outdated. That's not what we want. So we're going to call the PIP line and just do a Google search for the PIP line, and make sure it's the one that's for new claims, because if you ring the one that's for existing claims, I assure you they will just say, sorry, you have been on this phone an hour and a half, but now we're going to say goodbye. Go and ring the other line. So make sure you're calling the one that is for new lines, or write to them. You can snail mail them, say, dear DWP, please can I apply for PIP? Can I have a form? I've never known anyone do it, but I'm sure it works. You can phone them. And when you do, there's a number of questions that they will ask you on the phone. And that will include things like your name, your address, your bank details for if they have to pay you or want to pay you. They don't say have to. If we want to give you some money, if we need to pay you, so you will need your bank card. So don't be looking on your bank card. I've got people that come on the bank card. They're like, oh, my account number's not on my bank card. I don't know what it is. Make sure you've got your account number, your sort code, your name. Otherwise, I won't know whose bank to give it to. And then in order for them to send the form out to you, they're going to need to ask for your name and address. So don't ring up PIP or attendance allowance or DLA and say, no, I'm not going to tell you who I am, because they won't be able to send you the form. Now, they might send you a physical form. And if they do, it's about 26, 56, I don't know, a million pages. It's not quite a bazillion, but it nearly is. It's a very thick book. And they send it you by snail mail. Now, when you're on the phone to PIP, if you are on your own, well done. But if you aren't on your own, the person that's with you will probably ask PIP if you can fill it in electronically. Now they've only just started this. I say only just. It feels like forever. About 10 years ago, 2014. There we are, 10 years ago. About 10 years ago, I got very, very frustrated with PIP because many of the individuals that I supported were dyslexic. So when we applied for PIP and we got the snail mail letter, the big form, even when I helped them fill it in and I did the scribing, it was still a very big form for them to read, a very big form to scan in, and an awful lot of handwriting, an awful lot of hours, an awful lot of effort. And I knew that we could, halve it by having an electronic form. And what I'd been doing is I'd created a Word document with all of these headings we're going to go through. And this is a very good idea if you're doing it alone. And we're going to go through those headings in a minute. A Word document of all of these headings of these questions that came in the post, so that I could type the answers. Because the irony was that because I'm not diagnosed dyslexic, I have a dyslexic-like learning style, I have a dyslexia assessment, and I do have reasonable adjustments from disabled students allowance because of my specific learning difference, but I'm not dyslexic. Because I'm not dyslexic and I don't have a diagnosis of dyslexia, the UK government in that department, the PIP department, not DSA, because they're happy with it, not access to work, because they're happy with it, but PIP, the same people but a different department, PIP will not accept that you are dyslexic, and this was 10 years ago, unless you had a dyslexia assessment award, a label, a sticky label. So I didn't. And even though I'd asked for the electronic version of the form, because what happened was I had a dyslexic client, and whilst I was on the phone to one of the case managers in Leeds, they said to me, does your client want to type their form? I said, what? He said, oh yeah, we're rolling out a new dyslexia reasonable adjustment. We have a gentleman that's created an electronic form. I said, hang on, I've got one of those. He said, and you're able to type in the boxes in the answers underneath. I said, hang on, I've made one of those. And then he showed me, and indeed, there it was. There was my form. And he had this electronic form, and he said, can I send you this form? It was pretty much the same, literally. There was no heading, there was no but letterhead, there was nothing. It was just a Word document. And he said, shall I send you this Word document? I said, yes, please. So he sent me a Word document, and he said, the only thing is you can't fill it in because you're not dyslexic. Sorry? He said, no, your client needs to fill it in. I said, yes, but they're dyslexic. He said, yes, and you're not. I said, no. He said, so you can't use it. I said, hang on. So I wasn't very confused. I was very confused about that. You see, I think my client needed me to do the typing whilst they did the talking, and then we would put it together and that would get that in. I thought that was logical. Now, actually, they have rolled that dyslexia reasonable adjustment out nearly, almost 10 years. Research takes about 10 years to go from research to practice, and we are 2025. We will be at that 10 years. We're 2024. We're just heading there. And what they've done is they've taken that original dyslexia form, they've turned it into another form, and they've put it online. It's actually become the access to work form 2, or a version of it. They've used the same sectioning, and you can save within the sections. Now, the good thing is about the PIP version is that at the end of saving it, you can get a PDF version. So whilst you're filling in this online form, so when you phone, when we make the phone call, hello, can we have the form? We can say, long story short, hello, we are in this area, Scarborough, Sheffield, Wales, Cardiff. Are you rolling out the electronic version of PIP? Well, in some areas, they will literally say, well, yes, we are, but we're going to have to give us an email address for us to send it. You really? I'm going to need to say, yeah, you are. Sorry, I'm being sarcastic now. They'll say, we need an email address so we can send you it. And we'll need a telephone number so that you can have two-factor authentication. Now, we're still at the situation where in order to help you with an electronic form, we can't help you with an electronic form. Because it is still sent to you, and it's two-factor authentication. So if you are working with somebody working with your PIP form, you're going to have to be willing to fill in the two-factor authentication, let them in, type it. Really, nobody should be in your electronic form except you. However, if you are dyslexic, we understand, or autistic, or ADHD, or blind, for goodness sake, maybe you do need a scribe. And in that case, then you will be completing that two-factor authentication. And you're not telling me the government don't know that for some people, it's just not possible for them to type it there themselves. So there are reasonable adjustments, and you can get an electronic version or a paper version of your form back. That was a long way through, and the form can come electronically or by email, but it can. And if you can get the how your disability affects you by email, get it, because believe me, you want to. You can upload your evidence, which we'll go on to in a little while, up there easily, much more easily. You can go and edit your answers. You can type them. You can ask somebody else to type them for you if you happen to have a husband, a wife, a mother, a brother, a child, well, anybody. Just drag somebody off on the street, come type for me. I'm joking, by the way. Don't do that. It's not a good idea to drag strangers in off the street to fill in your PIP form. It won't work for a start. They're too busy. So don't do that. But if you do want somebody to help you, then you will have to do the two-factor authentication, or have them sat next to you with your computer scribing for you. Or you can have that form by mail, and I have filled in hundreds and thousands of those forms. Not hundreds and thousands, as in the little sprinkles, but hundreds and thousands of the forms. I think I probably have filled in thousands of them. And when that form is filled in, you are invited to add evidence, and there is a myriad of evidence that needs to be added, and we will be going on to that in a later webinar. We won't be going into the intricacies of evidence and the ways to go through the 3 stages tonight. This is just, what is it? Well, we've already run through it at the beginning. What is it? How do we apply? What is it not? How do we get there? What are the criteria? And then once they've received that, and they have a look through your evidence and everything that's been answered, and we'll go through those questions, then you will be able to attend a health assessment. It says if required. It pretty much is always required, pretty much, unless you have a form from your doctor, which is obtainable because you have been told you have likely less than 26 weeks to live. If you've been given a life-limiting diagnosis and a time frame on that life limitation of 6 months or shorter, then you'll be given a form by the doctor, which means your PIP is instant almost. You'll be paid that PIP within 4 weeks. And I've certainly helped that happen for people. The doctor just signs it to say you are life limited, and then you get an enhanced rate, actually a special rate, PIP, a special rate. But be sure, if you survive beyond those 26 weeks, you'll be removed from that special rate, because it's only for terminal patients. And when you do ring for your form, they will ask if you are somebody who is whose life is limited by 26 weeks or less. And that's the reason they're asking that. Is not because they're being, oh, look, you've only got half a year to live. That's not it. They're doing it so that they can speed through the application on what they call the special rate for people who are not expected to live longer than that 6-month period. And that's really the only time that you're not going to be going for a health assessment, or there is one other time that you won't be going for a health assessment. And that time is if you have a practitioner, a professional, a specialist, a teacher, a social worker, a psychiatrist, any specialist like that, that is speaking up on your behalf, and they are working with the DWP carefully in terms of making sure you are safe. So if you are being safeguarded, or your situation is deemed to be so difficult that an assessment is not in your best interests, and in fact could be a risk to you or other people, then that will be another reason why you are not assessed. That is so rare, though. I've had 2 people in the whole of my welfare benefits application time, which is, let me think, 19, there we go, so that's a long time. That's at least 2 years, being 21. I was 19 when I began filling in welfare benefit forms, and believe me, this has been 2 people in that time have not had a health assessment because of a risk to themselves or other people. So be expected to have that health assessment. Now, sometimes they're face-to-face, but more than often times now they are on a Teams call, and you are better with somebody with you. Now, if you have a family member and you ask for them to speak on your behalf, sometimes those PIP assessors, those attendance allowance assessors, those DLA assessors don't really take kindly to people speaking up for you. However, if you have somebody from a third sector agency, from a charity, or from an organisation that you're working with, or a professional colleague to that assessor, then they oftentimes will allow that person to share with you and support you. Now, that health assessment is not an easy gig. So again, I wouldn't go it alone. CAB, who I mentioned and alluded to earlier, you can also phone them and say, I've got a PIP form coming. I'd like to fill it in, and they will telephone you and go through these questions that I'm going to go through with you over the phone, and they will write down verbatim what you say to them. So that verbatim means word for word. They will write down word for word what you say for them, and then they will send you that, and they'll even send it off in the form if you ask them to. So they can do that with you, so you can get an auditory form of what you want to say when you fill the form in over the phone with CAB. But they don't advise you. They don't advise you. They just take what you say. They may help you with a couple of framing the questions, but they are there just to take the information. And then once you've had that assessment, you filled in the form, it's gone off, you've had this assessment online or face-to-face, or they've come to the house, you have to wait for the decision letter, which will tell you whether you're awarded PIP and at what rate. Actually, that's not always just the truth, because sometimes the person that's speaking up for you, for example, myself, may get a call, will get a call, definitely will get a call from a nurse. And usually at the end of that conversation, there'll be some indication as to whether that PIP application has been successful. It doesn't always say the rate, but it'll say that, looks like this is going to go through. I've just got to get it authorized. So although I don't tell people, I often have an inkling a while before their PIP comes through. And we had one just the other day, that I had a conversation for 2.5 hours, actually. When the nurses do ring the specialists that speak on your behalf, they really do they really do take us apart as well, actually. It is earnest and comprehensive, and they go through these. So let's just check. Who is PIP for? So it's 16. You've got to be 16. You've got to have a disability, and it's to state pension age. Beyond state pension age, it's attendance allowance. Before the age of 16, you got it. It's disabled living allowance. For those of you that have said those two things in your head, well done. You've now remembered all three of the non-means tested benefits that exist for disability. That's personal independence payment for adults between 16 and 65. Children up to the age of 16, disabled living allowance, unless you're called Chris and you're still on it. And over 65, unless you're called Alexia and you're actually 21 and receiving your attendance allowance. I'm joking, she's not 21 and Chris isn't a child. But we are just explaining that it's not always exactly as I say right now in this way for every case, because every case is a case by case. These are generals. And it's for those that have a physical or mental condition or disability where they have had difficulties with daily living or getting around, or both. Are we ready? Very important here. For 3 months. And expect these difficulties to continue for at least 9 months. Now, it used to say 6. To be honest, 6 is guaranteed. They want 6. Most of the assessors still talk about 6. 6 months. Lasted for 3 months, carry on another 6 months. But if you think about it, 3 and 9, it's a year. Is this going to last you a year or more? If it's not, it's probably not a disability. It's probably a temporary disability, right? Pregnancy is a disability. It is if it affects you extensively over the 9 months, but of course it doesn't really, generally. It usually starts at 3 months and then it's finished at 9, 10. So, it's less than 6 months. It's not going to last for at least 9 months because it's unlikely to affect you right away. So, PIP is unlikely to be paid for things like being pregnant, right? How long does it take? Well, clearly, if it's meant to last for things that last longer than 9 months, it's not going to be a quick process, right? The initial call to start your claim, you do it within the day. They send it out that day. They send the form out that day. It's usually with you within a week. It's not that difficult. And they say that they aim to make a decision within 16 weeks from the date the claim started. It's very unusual. Very, very unusual for it to get done in 16 weeks. And reviews and tribunals, I've seen them take up to 2-3 years. And times can vary depending on different circumstances. They certainly do. So the criteria for accessing PIP is that you need difficulties with daily living, such as preparing or eating food, and managing therapy, and I'm going to talk about all of these, or monitoring a health condition, washing, bathing, using the toilet, for example. Mobility, planning and following journeys, and moving around. And you're assessed on a point-based system, depending on how your condition affects you. And we're going to talk about those. Now, this form, where you can see here, the personal independence payment table of activities, descriptors and points. If you just type into Google PIP descriptors, it will come up with the CAB, this very simple Word document PDF of all of the descriptors and the points that are attributed to them. And it literally is what the assessor goes through. So when they call and you filled in this form and you sent it off and then you speak to somebody on Teams, they are going through these literally these questions. And they are only interested in whether you fit one of these answers. They are not interested in whether it let's have a look. What's this one? This one is about preparing food. They don't care that Aldi's expensive, Asda, whatever. They're not bothered that you don't have an Asda for 52 miles. They don't care that your brother only comes once a fortnight to shop for you. But all of these things are part of your story. They're all part of your journey. They're all part of how it is for you to prepare food. I was talking to somebody the other day who's just got their PIP, and they were asking me why they would get any points for preparing food when they can put what's made for them in the microwave. And I said, yes, but what about how to get that food into the bowl? It didn't just turn up as liver and onions casserole, did it? It turned up as very different food to the one that was in the bowl that you put in the microwave. And can you actually eat that? I mean, even if you can put it in a microwave in the bowl, can you feed it yourself? Are you able to cook that meal, that stew, in a conventional oven for yourself, preparing the meat? Have you got the time? Have you got the strength? Have you got the energy to be able to be there? Have you got the stability, the mobility, the dexterity to be able to prepare it? Have you got the agency and the energy to think about the food that you've got to have in the kitchen in order to be able to have food to prepare? Because if there's no food to prepare in the first place, it's pretty much a superfluous question, isn't it? So when we're answering this question, we also need to think about not only have we managed to prepare to the point that there's food there to prepare, but is there any agency to even do that? Even if the food is there, is there any agency or volition? Is there any motivation? Is there any possibility? Is it possible psychologically for food to be prepared? Do we even think about food? Because if you've got somebody that's neurodivergent and they're hyper-focused, it might be that they don't think about preparing food unless you grab a Mars bar or shove an apple in the hand. Might be hyper-focused, might not think about food, might even need prompting to eat food, to cook food, to prepare food, to think about the microwave, to even walk into the kitchen. Now, if somebody just needs prompting, reminding, come on, time to have something to eat, let's get in the kitchen, that's 2 points. And I'm telling you that points mean prizes. It says 2 at the end. You'll see the points. So let's just look at it. So this one is all the descriptors, the activities, and the points, and we're going to go through them all. This is preparing food. So number 1, and there's 12, and these all get points, and points mean prizes. Can prepare and cook a simple meal unaided. All those things are required. The cooking, the preparing, the shopping, the knowing what to eat, the deciding, the portioning, the knowing how to cook it, the doing it right, the turning things on, the timing it, all of that, sequencing it, can do that. If you can do all that without any help from anyone, you get no points. It's really unlikely if you're disabled that that's the truth. It's very likely, actually, that you might need an aid or an appliance to prepare or cook a simple meal. That might be, I don't know, a chopping board with a spike on it where you stick your potato, so you can actually chop your potato with one hand, perhaps. Thinking about Christian, thinking about Trey right now. Needs to use an aid or appliance. Now, the thing is with these, you can only get one of them. So you can't get 2 points for B, 2 points for C, 2 points for D, even though all those are true. Maybe. You can only have one lot. Now, the bottom one is 4 points. Needs supervision or assistance to either cook or prepare a main meal. That's 4 points. So the most you can get here is 4 points. The least you can get here is 0 points. If you get 0 points, you're pretty clever, I think, because I can't do any of that independently. I need help and support and assistance. I need reminding. I need aids and adaptations. Trey has a talking microwave, just saying. Only because I found it. So he would get 2 points for being able to say, he needs prompting. Also, he needs an aid or appliance, but actually needs supervising or assistance to either do any of the other. Of course, Trey would get 4 points there. I'm not picking on anyone, but, Trey would get 4 points. He needs help preparing food. It's why Trey now has an amazing assistant to be able to help him do that. That's why I've got 2 amazing assistants to help me do that, because we get the 4 points. Get the 4 points, and we'll go on to how many points you need. But 4 is a good number for one question out of 12. Second question, taking nutrition. Can you put food into your mouth? If you can, and you've got the propensity to, and you've got the agency, and you've got the energy, and you remember to, and you've got the motivation to, great, well done. Then you'll get no points because you can take nutrition unaided. But I'd be pretty surprised if you experience a disability and you don't have any element of anxiety or depression. And it will surprise me very much if at some point during that journey of being ill, there hasn't been a point in time where eating hasn't been a difficulty. For me, it was after hospital. I found it very difficult to take any nutrition. My stomach was so small, I couldn't eat any solid foods. I was on liquid food. I was on little ice cubes of mushed up food. And eventually I was encouraged to drink 40 sips, they were called. And then the gluten dairy free one, which are little drinks. And my nurses, 24-hour nurses, used to come and literally every few minutes, you can have a sip. Just take a sip. Just a few minutes since you've had a sip, prompting me to take nutrition. And I was just under 6 stone, so I had to be prompted. I was very, very poorly. At that point, I would get my 6 points because I needed assistance to manage that therapeutic source. Often they would have to, when I was in the nursing phase, lift the straw to my mouth so that I could just sip those drinks throughout the day. So we can move between these points. However, we need to be talking about our worst possible day. About, do we need nutrition? And we're applying for PIP and we're thinking about whether we're entitled to it. If these things happen more than 50% of the time, so 50% of the time I couldn't bring myself to drink these drinks. I couldn't lift my head off the pillow to take a sip. I certainly couldn't think about doing it. If that was happening more than 50% of the time, then I was due those 6 points because it was regular, repeated, and the majority of the time. And they're the things that they're going to be asking. How often does this happen? How frequently? And to what extent? And we always talk about the worst possible day because we can't predict, right? When we're unwell, we can't predict whether that worst possible day is going to be today or tomorrow, today or tonight even. So taking nutrition. So it might be that if you still need prompting to take nutrition, there's another 4 points. Or a therapeutic source such as the Nutri-Drink, those drinks I'm talking about, there's the 2 points. So it might be at this point, you've got 4 points, you know where you are, you'll be scoring yourself. Remember, you can only have one lot. It's either 2 or 4 or 6 or 0 if you're really clever. And if you're able to take nutrition unaided all the time, well done to you. Good on you. You get no points. Managing therapy, number 3. Now, this is one that people don't really understand at all. Therapy, what is a therapy? Well, it says that I'm just looking at the timing there. Look at me looking at my eyes like this. I look how old I am now looking at this. So to get 4 points here, it's needs supervision, prompting, or assistance to be able to manage a therapy that takes no longer than 2.5 hours and no more than, let me just see, is it 7 hours a week? Yeah. So more than 3.5 hours and no more than 7 hours a week. And people say, oh, I don't have a therapist for 7 hours a week. I have an hour a month. Yeah, it doesn't say having your therapy session. It says managing therapy, and therapy can be very broad. Therapy can be a counsellor, it can, or a psychotherapist. It can be an occupational therapist. It can be a somatic therapist. It can be a physiotherapist. It might be speech and language. It could be you're seeing a strategy coach. It might be that you're seeing your support worker. It could be a number of things. Add up all the things that you do that are therapeutic to you. We're not just talking about accessing a therapist. So if you have between 7 and 14 hours a week of that form of therapy, then you have those 6 points. And oftentimes, very importantly, you have evidence of that support. That might be a bill, it might be an invoice, it might be an award letter, it could be a care and support plan, it might be a direct payments award, it could be your access to work award showing the hours that you helped to manage therapy? A very, very important question, a very, very important answer, and one that people really don't often get any points for, which is great for me, because when a PIP award comes back and it's been rejected and I look at this question, if that person is entitled to strategy coaching, for example, or a support worker, or they have access to hydrogen therapy, water therapy, hydrotherapy, there we go, or physio, or all of those things, this is where you can get some points, and we'll go on to what points you need. So if somebody's been said no to, but you know that they have lots of therapies and you can evidence those, this is where you're going to get some points, guys. And managing therapy is one that people avoid. That's a very important one. Washing and bathing. It's not whether you can pick a flannel up and wipe your face. It's not. It's about how you wash and bathe, whether you wash and bathe, whether you've got the propensity, the energy, the the motivation, or capacity, capability to do that, and whether you can do it adequately, and whether you can do it for your top half and your bottom half, or just one. And it's very important to be able to describe that you can't wash your feet, for example, reaching down to wash my feet, not easy. Cut my toenails, not easy. Reaching down or round to reach behind me, not easy. To lift my hands above my head for a length of time to wash my hair, not easy, because when I put my hands behind my head, what that does is it presses into my brainstem, actually, because of the way that my hypermobility works. So I have a problem with washing my own hair, even though I can use a hand cycle. So if you need assistance to be able to wash your body between your shoulders and your waist, then it's 4 points. If you need assistance to be able to get in or out of a bath or shower, then it's 3 points. Cannot wash and bathe at all unaided, of course, even more. If you can do it all on your own, and that involves getting in, getting out, getting dried, passing things, getting things, reaching things, running the water, being able to understand the temperature, knowing when to come out, washing yourself, washing your own hair, lifting your hands up, being able to dry afterwards, get your clothes on, maneuver yourself from the bathroom. As long as you can do all that and clean up afterwards, then you can do it on your own and you'll get no points. But if you need to hold on, if you get fatigued and you need to sit down, if you need to get out the bath because actually you've got too hot and bothered and you know you're going to pass out, if you feel poorly when you bathe, if you avoid bathing because you know how poorly it makes you feel, if you know you only do it once a week because actually, well, you choose not to go in the shower, don't you? No, actually, you used to go in every day, but now you're going once a week. Why? Maybe because it takes you 14 times longer than it used to. Maybe washing and bathing needs to be something that you're talking about. Managing toilet incontinence needs is a pretty obvious one. But if you cough, you leak, and you have to change your pads or your pants again and again, you've got continence needs. If you need prompting and supervising for those needs, like you don't remember to go out and go to the toilet when you're out or on the way out, it's 2 points. Those points add up. Points mean prizes. Imagine if you got 2 for each. We're on question 5. That's 10 points. Dressing and undressing is exactly the same. If you need prompting for dressing or undressing, or if you're a person that goes to bed and leaves your clothes on, or gets up and leaves your pajamas on and spends them all day in pajamas or lounge wear, as we now like to call it. If you think to yourself, well, I've had this tracky bottoms on for 3 days, but nobody can see it, so I'm not going to change it. If taking your clothes off, and I'll be honest, there's sometimes this afternoon I went into the bed for an hour. I did. And it's too much trouble. It is to get buttons undone and done up again. So I just didn't. I got into bed in my clothes and I had an hour. I did. And it does take a lot to get my kit off and get it all on again. And I knew I was here an hour later and I just didn't have it and there was nobody here. So I got into bed in my clothes. If that's what happens, you do need assistance. You're proving it. And Ian wasn't here because I'd explained I needed an hour in bed and I couldn't face anybody, a bit like we were saying earlier. Sometimes you don't. And I had to stay in my clothes. So there's the points there for dressing and undressing. It's not just if you can physically do it, it's whether you've got the propensity, the energy, the motivation. Reading and understanding. Now, most PIP assessors will say this is just as long as you can physically read the sign. We're looking to see if you can see a street sign or a road or a phone or read complex information like a map. But actually, it also says, do you need prompting to read that information? So if you're having a panic attack and you won't look at the map, you don't know which way's up because you might need someone to prompt you to have a look at being able to read that map. Understand what the bus stop says about when the bus is coming. A big one for autism. Well, most people actually. Engaging with other people face to face. If meeting somebody is so psychologically distressing to the claimant, the person that you're applying for, that it could result in substantial risk of harm to them or somebody else, engaging with people face to face. Remember what I said about PIP assessments? 2 people. Then it's an automatic 8 points. If you need just support to engage with people, and there's a lot of people like that on the autistic spectrum, neurodivergent, then it's 4 points. And budgeting decisions. That's not can you add up. That's when deciding how to spend your money. Is it possible that you can spend money sensibly on what you need for what you need and want and put them in order and be able to manage them and be able to budget accordingly and make those decisions on your own successfully? If not, have a think about that. And if there's times when people have had to bail you out, help you out, support you, and I have to have somebody to help me with mine, I'm dyscalculic. I don't like numbers. You might benefit from those points. And then a massive one, because this moves on to the mobility part, planning and following journeys. If you cannot, unaided, take any journey because it would cause you, the person applying, overwhelming psychological distress to you, then here is 10 points. If you can't follow the route of a familiar journey on your own, then it's 12 points. And that's when you get higher rate, PIP, mobility, without the distance walking, is when you cannot follow a route of a familiar journey on your own and travel independently on that journey. Gives you the 12 points. And there's your mobility trigger. Your other trigger is this one, 12 points. Can stand and then move more than 1 meter, but no more than 20 meters, either aided or unaided, is 12 points. Or cannot stand or move unaided at all, 12 points. And that's your trigger. That's your one that gets you the higher rate, enhanced rate mobility, but that goes from 0 points. You can walk and run and do whatever you like. Now, I've said points mean prizes, and this has taken nearly an hour, which is a surprise. But literally, if you go back over those points, if each of them gave you 2 points, and there's 12, there's 10 questions then about the daily living, preparing food, taking nutrition, managing your therapy, washing and bathing, managing your toilet needs, dressing and undressing, reading and understanding, engaging with people face to face, making those budgeting decisions. They're all part of daily living. And then planning and following journeys and moving around are part of mobility. You get 12 points, if you get, here we go, for daily living. For daily living, it is 8 and 12. There we go. And for there we go, and the same for standard. There we go. Between 8 and 12 for standard, 8 and 11 for standard, and 12 for enhanced. So points really do mean prizes. And not only do points mean prizes, but numbers mean stages. And believe me, the first stage, when you send off all of your evidence and we fill in these forms and you write it according to those criteria, I need prompting to take any form of nutrition every day, most days, at least 50% of the time. Even then, with this evidence, this can be evidenced by my occupational therapy report, which describes that I have a nutritional supplement that I am regularly reminded to take by my nurses. Even then, very often people come back with less points than we should have been attributed, either because the evidence isn't there, or because the evidence wasn't alluded to, or because the criteria wasn't written according to those descriptors. And of course, that's really easy across 12 questions. People not to even understand how it works is easy. So it's very easy for that first stage to come back and it say, nil point. Many times Pip comes back as nil point. Not because that disability isn't relevant, or not that it doesn't attract PIP or DLA or attendance allowance, but because those criteria haven't been alluded to, haven't been described, and they haven't been evidenced, and they haven't been provided evidence for. So there's a next stage. It's called a review of the decision. And as long as we put in a great statement, usually written alongside you when we help, and I'm talking about inclusion here, we have volunteers now in inclusion that are beginning to work for their accreditation. They are helping people claim, apply for, and be handheld through these processes. So please do get in touch. We are beginning that very early fledgling service that's absolutely required. So bear with us. If you are part of our strategy coaching teams and you have your strategy coping support through accessibility partners, then this is something that you are supported through as a given anyway, if you're entitled. So that next stage is where we ask them to review their decision. We make sure that all of the evidence is in there, and that includes getting your medical records, which we can now get for a GDPR request. So we just ask for a freedom of information request for your medical records. We get those, and then you can choose from those the evidence that you put up there. A statement from us too takes you to the second stage. If the decision is overturned, then again, they write to you and that money will come into your account. If it doesn't, then it goes to the third stage, which is tribunal. Sounds terrifying. And if you listen to what people say about tribunals, they're not nice. They're in a court of law, and people, we align that with doing things wrong. We're not doing anything wrong here. We're genuinely not. I'm aware my Mac is running out of power, so I'm hoping it doesn't die on me. I'm hoping not. Let's hope it's all right for a minute because I haven't got my cable. So then the third stage is tribunal. 98% of tribunals were upheld, which means that only 2% of tribunals are turned down. I've never been turned down at a tribunal, but then I wouldn't take anybody to a tribunal that I didn't think should be going to a tribunal. That may change in the future as I am going to tribunals with anyone that I need to, that I'm being paid to go to. And therefore, I am not choosing anymore the likelihood of those outcomes. But I would say, just don't go it alone. I really would. If there was anything I was going to say to anyone, it would be, don't go it alone. PIP is an onerous task. It's a difficult process. It's a 3-stage race, and the DWP say that they bring it back to the same starting block, so they help level the playing field, because at tribunal, all of those that should be are awarded. But if you've been trying to get PIP for 20 months and you're severely disabled, waiting for that to come, or you have had it taken away and we are helping you get it back again. I've got people waiting for triple heart bypass surgery that have been waiting 20 months for their PIP to come back again, and they are still sitting in a flat, and I'll be honest, they were probably paying some of their rent with that PIP, which is not what it's for. And now they're 20 months without that PIP. Not because they're not entitled, but because they didn't have the evidence. Don't go it alone. Don't go it alone. So I hope that in this last minute, and we are literally at the hour, that's been helpful for you. I am going to leave it there. If you've got any questions, people, we have an audience with us. We've not even had a chance to talk to them. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to have just one statement from everybody before we go, just what they would say that they'd give to one person if they were going to apply to PIP, or if they were going to, if they wanted to know one thing from their journey with PIP, just what would it be? I would say for me, before I hand over to one by one to all of the wonderful people who I'd like to say, if you can go one by one and just say who you are, how you are involved with inclusion, and what your experience of PIP is, what you would say to that person. I'm going to see if I can remove this from stage. There we go. Then I would be awfully grateful. And that will just probably take us to 10 past the hour. You've been really great. And I will go and find my cable so we don't die. I'll put my camera off and go and find my cable, take myself off the stage. So if you just want to, Christian, on mic and do that and go round each of you, I'll be back with that cable. And what you're involved with for, and then anything you'd like to add for people regarding the PIP, the attendance allowance, or the DLA situation. I will move on.
Sandra.
Won't be long. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, Chris. I'm a director of inclusion, and I've also been helped through a lot of the processes that MJ's just spoken about. I think really, MJ sums it up with "Don't go it alone." You need to know what you're doing with it. You need to know exactly how to play it. Nobody's getting anything they're not entitled to, but it's such a complicated process. As MJ said with the form, it's such a long, complex form that if you haven't got somebody who's been there before and done it and knows, it can completely overwhelming, and you can end up getting tie yourself in knots with it. So that's the biggest takeaway is MJ, don't go it alone. So I will just move around the stage. I can see it. I've got Alexia next to me. Alexia, do you want to add anything? That'll be enough. I'll move on to carry on. Or James, do you want to add something? Can you?
Yeah, I there is no way I would go through this alone with what I experienced to get to the point of finally being successful through this. Many years ago, a friend I worked with, many years ago, when I started my first career in work, this lady I'd worked with, she said that I was entitled to this. You just have to fill in some very simple forms. But let me tell you, when them forms hit my doormat, I was like, oh my God, the overwhelm. And I am someone who has got bipolar. And I don't sleep well with this condition at all, which is another condition I have with my sleep. And it was just pretty much overwhelming when I saw the form. I was like, thank goodness I've got the coaching from the support from MJ's team, incredible people, just really. And at this moment, with this new injury that I have, I really, support I'm getting is fabulous, because I could not have gone anywhere down the route of going through that form. There's so many. When I looked at the questions, a lot of them were just very complex for me to understand. And I was getting stressed just before I'd even got onto the second page. So I would strongly recommend that you get this support from this incredible bunch of people, or else yeah, you're going to start to lose some hair, I think, at the very least. I've not enough hair to lose, so I'd strongly recommend, and that might sound funny, that, but no, don't go pulling your hair out. The people are there to give you the support, and they're here today. So as you watch this, just maybe watch it again to understand that this form is extremely complicated. But yeah, I'm so grateful to the support I have received, and yeah, thank you very much, everybody, for your help.
I tell you what, James, I'm just going to jump in there. I was only thinking today, if it wasn't that we'd done so well in the way that we had, we'd have to apply again, wouldn't we? But as we did so well, we haven't got to apply again because we can't. Well, we can't do any better.
That's nice.
So yeah, I was thinking to myself, if we hadn't done so well, we'd have been applying again. So I'm really grateful that we did such a good job, because we must have known that you were heading for the floor.
For the floor at speed, yeah.
Yeah,
Not
well,
recommend. Not spinal injury is not recommended, but I know there are people out there with this conditions for me, and if you have got this conditions for me, you should definitely be applying for this. So
absolutely.
support and get your bank balance, the credit that it needs.
James is definitely an example of a benchmark. If you have got conditions that are worse than James, you should definitely. In fact, we are a benchmark. We are the benchmark for being applied because, as I say, I'm entitled. James is entitled. We're all entitled. So there we are. That should give you a good benchmark, shouldn't it?
Sorry, I couldn't get unmuted before. My phone was doing what your computer was doing. It was threatening to die. I had to get to a cable.
Yeah.
It's coming out in sympathy with me for 2 late nights on the trot.
I'm glad I am.
Yeah. No, it's important that you do this with someone else. I've just had to back and ask for support in the home. If I'd done it myself, I know what I would have done because I went through this with MJ. I wouldn't have wanted to talk about the bad days because we don't want to talk about that. But one thing I didn't put on, I'm going to say it here now, is I'm having a problem with incontinency. I've never had that in my life. It's really embarrassing.
Wow.
And it's a problem.
It is a problem. I'm glad they didn't bring a big truck on your street. I'll tell you in West Square, Alexia, I'll have you, and this is just true. I came back from the hospital one day in my van. I was being driven, and there was a bloody great truck on West Square. And I swear down, it said in black writing on the side of the truck, North Yorkshire County Council Incontinence Service. Well, I went wild.
Yeah, but one thing I found out, and it's something we need to look into, because part of Health Watch for Cambridgeshire, we shouldn't have to suffer this. We actually had somebody come and talk to us in committee about this. So I'm going to contact my area representative at some point and say, look, I've now got this problem. How do I get hold of this?
Service
with her? Because it's really becoming a challenge.
It is a challenge, I think, for a lot of people.
It's not from not eating. One of the things I'll tell you, because I've had a hysterectomy years ago, so I'm just telling this for anybody who's listening. That can be one of the causes that starts it, because things inside begin to drop. I think that's my problem.
Yeah.
So something could be done about it. But I can't even get to see a doctor to talk to him.
No, well, that's right, and I think this is why we're moving down the I'll be honest, we're moving down the route as far as people that work alongside me as having opportunity to access forms of health rewards and support. I've had to take my own health into my own hands, and even with all of my conditions, my health, the whole of everything, is just over £100 a month. Now, I know that sounds like an absolute bloody fortune, but actually, I don't think I can afford not to do that. I've been waiting for a blood test now. I've just had today. I've had to take this health care out, but I've just gone for a blood test today that the doctor says I need. The hospital says I need, and they can't do it until Monday the 25th. Is it not next Monday?
Sounds about right.
Yeah, Monday the 20th, Monday 14 days. So not next Monday, the Monday after. It's just ridiculous. So I don't see I've got a choice. But yeah, there is an incontinence service. It takes a while to get it. It took me, I think, 12 weeks to get it in Wales to come round. But I think now they've taken off the labelling off the truck. Thankfully, it was about 15 years ago. Don't write it on the side of the bloody van. I don't need it turning up on the road.
I think people don't realise what disability is.
No.
If you were brought up when you and I were brought up, you were brought up that it's not you that's a problem. You've got to make yourself fit the world.
That's it. Yeah, that's right.
Nobody can do that, because even if you've been fit all your life, my disabilities, I've been harebrained, I've done abseiling, worked with problem horses, problem dogs. I've nearly been killed by my own horse because he was so hyper. But you could have an accident tomorrow. You could walk out your front door, you think you've done a sprain and you've actually done something more. And that leads to something else. That's why it's important that you look after your body as well. That is just as much as important as asking for this help, is understanding the correct way to feed yourself. And it is getting difficult for me. I couldn't have all you guys come round and do, because I used to be in catering and handle the big pans that I would have done. My right hand will drop it.
Yeah, no.
I would change the smaller pants so I can handle them and manage it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
these things are the way, but that's what you got to think about when you're filling these questions in, isn't it, Alexia?
You have, because I didn't even think about the incontinence until you brought that up. I mean, we know, but I didn't think about it. I can get it out.
And you think about using the water and the washing and the bedding and the clothes and the changing.
That's one thing I did argue when I moved here, because they wanted to put in a meter, and I said, no, I'm not having it. I didn't understand from that point of view, but at the most still legally refused to have a meter that reads the amount of water you use. So I'm like you, I get charged a flat rate and that is it. So I need to I need to change my clothes every day, so the washing machine's on every day.
That's it. You can. It's important that we can stay hygienic. It's important because that keeps us clean and that keeps us healthy. It stops us going into hospital and it reduces the NHS cost, right?
Yeah, all these things, if they're done correctly, saves the NHS money.
They do.
They want disabled people to work. Well, all of us here are disabled.
Exactly.
You started at 4 this morning. I started at 4 this morning.
Yeah. And I'm aware that we have all spoken except for Trey and Philippa.
Yeah, I'm going to go because I'm going to go and...
We're going to run away now. I'm going to say goodbye to everybody and stop this stream. Thank you. Does anybody want to add anything before
yes, if that's
great.
possible.
Good. Please do.
Okay, so I'm going to talk a little bit about my PIP and DLA experience. I'm going to try to be as succinct as possible, give a few hints and tips along the way. So I'm 35 now. I'm in Newport, and I moved to Newport in 2014 when I was 25 years old. Now, shortly after moving to Newport, it was announced in the media largely they were moving everyone over to PIP from DLA. And a few of my friends got moved over, and I actually decided to, and I'm going to use this expression, jump before I was pushed. And we had an assessor come around, and they were okay, and we got the benefit. My dad helped fill it at the time. What I'm going to say to people here, a couple of tips, is It will be slightly stressful and nerve-wracking, but with inclusion or accessibility partners to help you, it'll be okay. It'll be fine. I would advise people to move cautiously and move with caution. Also, please remember that obviously inclusion and accessibility partners are there to help you and they're genuine in their help. However, not all of the professionals that you may encounter from the DWP side of things will necessarily have genuine intentions. I think that's also important to remember. And also, when you are talking about your forms, go from your worst day. Go from your worst day. And talk as if it was your worst day. And yeah, that's my tips really. And I'll tell you who I am to end. I'm Trey. I'm totally blind. I'm a rapper. I make electronic music. I also run my own company doing accessibility testing things. I'm a member of Inclusion, and I've been working with accessibility partners also. So I hope that I hope that I haven't said anything too out of turn for the stream, and I hope that people have found my comments and hints and tips helpful. And thank you very much for listening, everyone.
Thank you, Trey. That was incredible. And thank you for talking about getting pushed and not pushed, jumping, because
don't know.
It's a good one for ESA as well.
I've actually got a small question for you, if you don't mind. I mean,
of course.
What's the current situation? Because I know that right now, I think we're in a similar phase with Universal Credit versus ESA. They're kind of moving you over. I don't know how many people are left on DLA. I don't think there's many left because it's what they call legacy benefit. Yeah. But is it? I mean, my thing would always be my advice for people. I don't know if you think about this, what you think. My advice would always be, as much control as you can have over your own benefit transition, try to exercise it, as opposed to other people having it for you.
1000%. I would say that choice and control is paramount in every area of lifespan planning. What is lifespan planning? Choice and control. It's independence. It's independent information. It's having an understanding of the landscape, and it's choice and control. Absolutely, couldn't have brought it back to a question that could be more pertinent for the launch of lifespan planning and what it is, and our whole model today than that. Choice and control. So if you can attain the control by having the choice that you make, not having that pushed upon you, then you're going to manage that process alongside the person that handholds you so much better. So much better. 100%, Trey. Absolutely. Thank you for that question. Thank you. Philippa, are you there?
Hi, I'm a strategy coach for Disability Partners. I have lived experience of PIP, and the only thing I want to add to the "don't do it alone" comment, which is, don't just do it with people who know the language either, or people who know the forms. Do it live with disability, because they know the right things to ask, and we can all laugh together at the silliness that disability brings into your life, rather than being treated with sympathy and poor you. For me, humour beats it every time, hands down.
Oh, do you know what? James is just sticking his thumbs up at that, and I would just do that, actually. I don't know whether we can do it on here, but yeah, we are. I'm going to do that to that comment, because I think that is a mic drop. I think that is a moment in time where the humour of who and what and how we are. I'll tell you, when I don't. Was it called? Is it called when the film about the two disabled Crips? Is it Sally and Bob? I can't remember, but the two Crips basically at the end they're on stage, and it's quite a famous film about the disability rights movement, and he's talking about it, and he says, let's laugh about it anytime. Let's laugh about this. Let's not patronize. Let's not give us lip service. Let's not sympathize. Let's not there. All of that just diminishes and reduces everything that we've ever fought for. And I think that it's worse than don't go and talk to somebody that's going to do your head in. It's actually worse, because I believe that every time I tolerate for myself some form of lip service. Every time I appease people in that way, every time I don't speak up and man up in a polite way, but in a respectful and honourable way with people, when I am spoken to in that way, I allow them not only to believe it's okay, but then to continue perpetuating that crap everywhere they go. And I'll tell you this now, it's not just about me, because I can handle that. But for some people, it can put them back into their box. It can put them back into their space. It can mean that they don't want to go out to work, or they daren't ask for that next thing, or they don't feel okay to go for that interview, just with those attitudes. So I would say that the doorway not being accessible or the lift not being there is actually less damaging than some of those patronising, sympathising ways that you're referring to. So thank you again to you for bringing that up. Thank you. Because I agree, humour's got to be it.
Can I just tell a quick story I feel would be relevant at this point, if that's okay?
Love you too.
Okay, so before the Second World War, I believe, in 1939, a few months before it all kicked off, Winston Churchill was sitting with some politicians, and one of them was Neville Chamberlain. And they were, I don't know if it was a motion in the Parliament or a gentleman's meeting, I can't remember which, I'm sure somebody will fill in the blank there, but they were discussing appeasement of Adolf Hitler. And Neville Chamberlain was saying what a good idea it was. And people were looking to Winston Churchill for his opinion. And Winston Churchill, I believe, didn't say anything. He just sat there and looked at them all and continued to look at them all and continued to look, and then basically said, no, I do not believe we should appease Adolf Hitler. So when you have someone doing this appeasing crap, take heart and take valor from Winston Churchill, and we don't appease. We don't appease because it doesn't hold any benefit to appease.
Right. I just had to let the
stick that in the journal museum for sure. I'll just write that one down, Chair. Thank you very much.
It's true, though, isn't it? True, pertinent, and important, and powerful words. In the words of Churchill, don't appease. Totally. I think the days of appeasing are over. But I also just want to say thank you to everyone that's contributed tonight, because the fact that we're here sharing our story changes the story for thousands and thousands of people in this country. And the more that we speak, the more oftentimes we speak, and the more spaces we speak that we don't ordinarily be heard, and the more our voices are at tables that they aren't yet, the greater this country will become. So, you know, in the lines of where you've just been, Trey, we are helping this country get great as a result of the impact that we're going to make and are already making. And if anyone thinks they're not doing anything important right now, then you wait and see the result of this webinar. I want to say thank you to everybody for being here. I want to say you've all been incredibly patient. If you've watched to here, then you're going to be watching for an hour and a half. An hour and a half is actually your clinical supervision every week whilst on a social work degree. So you will have taken part in the clinical equivalent timing this week of being on a social work degree, so you can feel like I have to be when I sit one-on-one and talk about theory and practice and how we apply that in the real world for an hour and a half at a time, and then have notes to write up. So I'll let you get off 7 minutes early, and you can go and write your notes from this, and then you'll have actually taken up your clinical notes. You've done it all, and you'll have had a session. You'll understand what it is. So if you want to go into professional development, we're practicing already. For those that have been on this webinar, thank you. And for those that are watching on this webinar, we absolutely love you, and I'm just loving this one there. I love that. I've got a bit of a going on with the whole sticking my two fingers up, which sounds a bit dodgy. I think you have to do it with two lots. I don't know, but I get to do it. Look at me. I am just very dodgy. I really am. I also like doing that as well. So if you've got a bit of a dodgy thumb, it's never as bendy as mine, though. Thank you very much. I'm going to give you those 5 minutes. We've been talking about PIP. You've been in inclusion. You've been on our StreamYard. This is our webinar, and this is part of a series. And if you don't know this series, You don't know inclusion. If you don't know inclusion, you're not part of that global pandemic that we know is the only one that you want to be part of. We are better together. Why? Because I'm crap on my own. I've been Mandy Jane, and you've been in inclusion. You've all been fantastic, and I will see you all next Monday, either in the morning in MJ's house on Clubhouse or in the evening on this webinar, or if indeed you want to come on Saturday to LinkedIn with her as well. And we're also in inclusion at 7 and pretty much everywhere. Omnipresent is what we are. We are that global pandemic, and we're just spreading. I can't wait until everybody is infected. Have a great week, everyone. And don't forget to write your notes. I'll be expecting them in the post. Bye.